Keep in mind, what I'm about to tell you only happened yesterday. I'm still trying to figure some shit out. I was driving from a visit with my family in California and cut north through Oregon. My plan was to reach I-90 and then head east, Maine or something. I had a long way to go and I wanted to get there fast. I fished a cig out of my pack, jammed it between my teeth, and lit it. My foot pressed steadily down on the accelerator. Around then, someone ran into the middle of the road. Shit! I was going too fast to stop, so I swerved instead, off the highway, up a short hill and onto an intersecting road. I pulled over. My adrenaline sky high and climbed out of the RV. Jesus, whoever that was, they were so lucky I hadn't hit them. I peered down the short incline, trying to see the idiot from the darkness. I didn't think that it was a deer or an animal. The shape was human. They couldn't have gotten far, and the way I felt just then, I was going to give them a piece of my mind. The shout was already on my lips, but it fizzled away to a groan. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Over a dozen shadowy figures, not 20 yards away, were standing shoulder to shoulder in a line across the highway. I was willing to bet the thing that ran across the road had been one of them. Seriously? I yelled. They already started down the hill. You could have fucking killed me! I made it halfway down the incline between the highway and the access road when I realized they weren't retreating. And Jesus, they were tall, each more than 7 feet, solid black humanoid masses forming a barrier between me and the road that I've been traveling. I was being sequestered. Still pissed, I stomped a few more yards before stopping again, unsure of what I had planned. They towered before me, silent. What? I said. What are you gonna do if I turn around and head north again, huh? Get noisier? Send me some weird dreams? Watch me even harder? There was movement in the line of shadow people. It surged and bent, and one of them stepped forward, breaking the ranks. The Hat Man. He kept his distance. I kept mine. That one in particular, he worried me. He was taller than the others, more imposing. He was the only one who had a face. Small white circles for eyes above a row of gleaming white teeth. But it was more than that. Something about him wasn't right. The way he moved, maybe, or his posture. The way those pupils slid around on his two white scleras. It made me think that he was something more than just a shadow person, whatever they were to begin with. Something disguised as one. And the thing underneath was much worse. So he lifted a massive arm and pointed to the access road headed west. When his pearly grin widened, I backed down. I took his advice. 2 hours later, I found myself in Eugene, Oregon. And that's where my last case begins. I was in town for an hour before I found it, or it found me. I wasn't looking either. I decided if I saw a shadowy figure, I'd head firmly in the opposite direction. Fuck that little display out on the highway. That was bullying, strong-arming, and I was far enough removed by then to be pissed about it. Since it was past midnight, I went to the nearest Denny's for some late-night pancakes. The only other customer was a pale, drawn-looking man in a corner booth. He was around my age, early 30s, but he looked like shit. Dark circles, nervous, dressed nice though, clearly not homeless. The waitress knew him. She was surprisingly candid, something I seemed to bring out in people. I learned the guy was just hired to teach 10th grade at the local high school. It was rough. Some weird things were going on at the school, she said. You hear rumors, she said. But she wasn't about to go into it, no sir. But why don't I go talk to him? Since I'm so curious, why don't I buy him a coffee? Couldn't help myself. Like I mentioned, this lifestyle is addictive. I hear the phrase weird happening, my ears perk up, and don't lie flat. Kicking myself for knowing this was exactly what the goddamn Hat Man wanted, I nevertheless moved over to the young teacher's table. His wariness melted away almost immediately. He even seemed eager to talk. Maybe he thought I could help. I don't know. And hell, in the end, maybe I did. Case number 20, The Door. Location, Eugene, Oregon. Date, September 13th, 2018. Witness name, William K. Relationship to case, newly hired high school teacher. We are in Will's third-story classroom after last bell. It's not a huge school, and he's close with the community. He's a alum, after all. 4 years here as a kid, and he liked it enough to come back for work. Not many of us can say the same thing about our high schools. He sits behind his desk at the front of the room. I lean against a student's desk opposite. I already know a little about the anomaly from our conversation at Denny's, so I start recording immediately. So tell me a little about it. Was it like this when you went here?
No way, man. No way. If I'd have known why Beekman left, I never would have taken the job.
Beekman is not his predecessor's real last name. In fact, all last names here change to protect identities. So when did it start?
Last year, as far as I heard. Around homecoming, maybe. That's when Beekman first started talking about it.
What was he saying?
Well, this used to be his classroom, right? He taught here for maybe 10, 15 years. This was his room for the last 10. Last year, right when school started up, apparently he mentioned the Judy Clark. She teaches 9th grade down the hall. Beekman mentioned finding a door in this room that he'd never seen before. Judy says that was her first inkling something might be wrong with him. At first she thought it was some kind of delusion. I mean, there was no way he just found a new door in his classroom. He spent pretty much every day in here for a decade, right? He wouldn't have missed it.
Right.
Beekman insisted though. Judy's like, sure, okay, whatever. Kind of worried about him. And then one night, she was here late, grading papers, and Beekman bursts into her classroom and drags her down the hall. And he shows her. You can't miss it.
Will pointed to the blank white wall at the back of the classroom, devoid even of papers or poster board. There's definitely no door there. I look back at him and raise an eyebrow.
No, I'm not crazy. The door isn't there right now, but it will be.
The door moves?
Well, I don't know about moves, but it definitely isn't there most of the day. As far as I can tell, it shows up around 6 p.m. and disappears around 9. Not on the nose. It's not perfect. But that's the pattern.
You've seen it then?
Oh, multiple times. Scared the hell out of me at first. Earlier this summer, I was in here getting lesson plans ready, decorating. I'd heard about Beekman, like vaguely. I think the rest of the staff were told to keep pretty hush-hush, especially around the new guy, worried I wouldn't take the job. But yeah, I'm sitting up here at my front desk, right? And I glance up, and there's a door there. Definitely wasn't one before. I had a framed poster hanging where it appeared, sheared in half. Right in the line of the door frame. Plastic and all. Perfectly clean cut. No idea where the rest of it is. It just disappeared.
Jesus. I glanced back at the wall again and nearly jumped out of my skin. There's still no door there, but the Hat Man has suddenly appeared. Stark black against the white plastic wall. I curse him under my breath.
What's up? You okay?
I turn back to Will, gazing at me concerned. I don't finish my sentence. It's clear Will can't see the shadow figure. He would have said something. Nothing, just thinking about the poster. The door destroys things hanging on that wall. Will withdraws a thin, worn leather notebook from the top drawer of his desk and leafs through it.
Only if they occupy the same space it does when it appears. You can hang stuff on the door while it's there. I never have, but Beekman. Beekman left notes.
How about opening it?
Yeah. Here. He says you can hang things on it while it's there, right? But it'll take them when it disappears.
Is it locked?
Oh, God, no. Beekman never did. I never will. I don't think so. His notes are vague, but you'll probably understand when it shows up. There's something about it, right? Makes you not want to go near it. And definitely never open it. Like, that's the worst thing I could imagine doing.
So no one's ever tried?
I guess Beekman could have, but he never wrote about it. But Maybe that's why things got so crazy around here, right?
The doors affected the rest of the school?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've only seen some of it, but you hear stories. This floor, especially. Weird stuff happens all the time. Beekman wrote down everything he could.
Give me a couple examples.
Sure. Okay. Started out as little things. All his desks were rearranged every morning when he walked in. Other teachers complained about that too. Stuff goes missing all the time. Papers, supplies, personal items. Once, someone lost their phone. And they kept hearing it buzz, but couldn't tell where it was coming from, right? Well, they finally found it above one of the ceiling tiles in here. People's phones in general, or computers, they glitch, they break. The whole building is a dead zone. Reception is terrible. You can try it.
I take out my cell phone and go to unlock it. My thumbprint won't register. I type in the passcode, it enters, but then it freezes and I can't get past my lock screen. I mess with it for a few more seconds before I simply turn it off. Weird.
I know, it's the worst in this room. Half the time I can't get my computer to turn on. My phone's barely usable. At least kids can't text during class though, right?
But wow, that's pretty extreme. Unable to help myself, I glanced back at the Hat Man. He's still there. Silent and unmoving. I feel his eyes on the back of my neck.
Yeah, and that's just the harmless stuff. A lot of it is less harmless. Kids get hurt a lot here. Lots of accidents. No one's died. But we worry it's only a matter of time. One girl, her hair started falling out. Poor kid. There was no reason for it. By the end of the week, she was totally bald. Still hasn't grown back. One kid forgot how to write. Oh no, he could write, but it was some Aramaic-looking language no one could translate. Could have been a prank. But I know that kid. He's not the type. Another one that really sticks out is the day one of the classes couldn't stop laughing. That was Judy's room. Scared the hell out of her. Apparently, one of the kids started laughing, right? And he couldn't stop. And it just sort of spread through the room, till everyone was just hysterical. Went on for at least half an hour. And I'm talking forced, painful, can't breathe type of laughing, where you wish you could stop, but someone's tickling you, and it hurts, and you think you're going crazy. They say laughter is a panic response. I think about that a lot. There's also... I talked about this with a couple of my peers, and we know it wasn't like this before. Not when I went here, for sure. Yeah, we still have time. It's easier if I just show you. You mind?
Not at all. Will leads me out of the classroom and down to the front entrance. We enter into the balmy air of early evening. He stops us right in front of the school's main doors and points down at the ground.
See?
What am I looking at?
Look how the pavement lines up with the doors. That gap, there.
I squat down to get a closer look. The school has a long concrete walkway from the street all the way up to the front doors, except it doesn't line up perfectly, or even well. There's a large wedge-shaped gap between the walkway and the wall of the school, about 6 inches wide, where you can see the soil of the ground underneath. Okay. Bad architecture, or...
No, man. It wasn't like that before. The walkway used to line up with the doors. Now, that gap, it's like...
Like the school moved.
Yeah, like turned on its axis, just a few degrees, but...
The whole building rotated counterclockwise.
Yeah, dude. Crazy, right? That gap keeps getting bigger, too. A couple of weeks ago, it was hardly big enough to see. Just a crack. Now, it's very noticeable. I don't know. There's some weird spatial dimensional stuff going on here, right? Compasses don't work in the building either.
And a door appears in a certain classroom at a certain time every day.
Yeah, maybe the whole building's an anomaly, right? Like the Twilight Zone.
Getting to my feet. I gotta tell you, this is some of the most concrete shit I've ever seen. The phone, Scap. I hear a lot of stories, but not many of them come with proof like this. I mean, if the door shows up.
It will. It always does. Let's head back up so we're in the room when it appears.
We head back into the school. I step gingerly over the gap between the door and the walkway. As we're walking up the stairs...
I've never managed to watch the door appear. Same as no one ever really feels the school turn. If you watch the wall, nothing happens. But you look away, right? Or inevitably, you blink. And there it is.
Has anyone ever tried to film it?
Beekman did. The camera glitched out.
Of course. How about the authorities? Cops or...
The principal wants to keep this on the DL. I don't know who could help anyway. Eugene doesn't exactly have the X-Files unit. Though by now, rumors are getting around. And with what happened to Beekman...
We enter Will's classroom. I glance immediately in the empty back wall. No door yet. But the Hat Man's still there, in the same position we left him. While Will is distracted, taking a seat at his desk, I flip the shadow figure off and turn my back on it. What did happen to Beekman?
It's all in here. It's his last entry. Tonight, I came to my classroom after a meeting in the teacher's lounge. My door was locked, which I had not done. I looked through the window.
I glanced back at the door in the classroom. Like many school doors, it has a narrow window set into it.
I looked through the window and saw one of my students, Olivia. Oh, he's talking about Olivia Downs, the 12th grader. She was in his writing club after school. It wouldn't have been weird to see her there. Okay. Olivia. Her back was to me, seated at a desk in my line of view. This worried me. It was past 6 p.m, so the door was almost certainly there, and I did not like to think of a student in the same room with it alone. Olivia was not looking toward the door. She was focused on the laptop before her on the desk. I gently knocked in an effort to not startle her. She did not turn at the noise. I knocked again. Olivia did not move. There was no way she didn't hear. I grew concerned. Olivia was sitting straight upright, facing the laptop screen. She was not slumped over. She did not look sleeping or injured. I knocked again. Again, she did not move. Then I noticed just how still she was. Her hand on the computer mouse did not move. The screen of the laptop, which I could not see well around her, was not playing anything. I thought Olivia might have headphones in, but I saw no evidence of them. I began to wonder if she was even breathing. Her shoulders were not moving. She was not shifting in her seat. I knocked again. I banged on the door and yelled her name. No response. Something was wrong. I tried to turn the doorknob again, but it was firmly locked. I looked down to it for a moment. I wondered if perhaps I could kick the door in. When I looked back through the window, Olivia was standing up. Her back was still to me. The laptop was gone. I had not seen or heard her move. It was like the scene jumped. I yelled again. I slapped the door. Finally, Olivia turned around. Except, it was not Olivia. I cannot describe that face. She looked furious. I jumped back, startled. When I came back to the window, the room was empty. I entered. I am shaken. The door is unlocked.
Will puts the notebook down.
That was the last thing he wrote. They found him here the next morning. He was facing that wall, right where the door shows up. Nose to the wall. Obviously, there was no door there at the time. He was all shaken up, crazy looking, some kind of fugue state.
Once again, I glanced back at the Hat Man. I could imagine the poor, harried, tortured Beekman there. Finally snapped after a year of hell. Oh, where is he now?
Oregon State Hospital.
Jesus.
Yeah, he never recovered. They say he was mumbling about the door, opening it. Don't know if that means he just tried, or...
That last sentence. The door's unlocked. Did he mean the classroom door, or the...
I think about that all the time, dude. I'm pretty messed up about it. What if that happens to me, right?
Don't let it.
How am I...
Ask for another room, first of all. Block this one off.
I don't know if...
Dude, I'm saying this from experience here. Don't fuck around with this. I glance back at the Hat Man. His teeth are out. He's smiling. It could be a matter of life and death, Will. That door is the epicenter of some kind of messed up phenomena, and people can and do get hurt.
Can you help me? Talk to the others, maybe, or...
Not my bag. Sure. I'll do what I can.
Thank you, dude. Thank you. Oh no.
What's up?
It's 6.
His eyes go to the back of the classroom. All the blood leaves his face, and slowly I straighten up and turn around. The Hat Man's still there. He seems much taller than before, and his shadowy edges are indistinct, vibrating rapidly. He's thrumming, buzzing like a swarm of bees when a stranger approaches their hive. And next to him, in what used to be a blank white wall, there is now a door. I recognize it immediately. I've dreamt of it countless times in the past few months. Gray steel, silver handle, mundane. Or as far from mundane as you can get.
Dude, what are you doing?
His voice surprises me. I stop in my tracks. I've been approaching it. I've halved the distance between us. Shit.
Blake, don't go near it. Seriously.
I won't. But I will. I glance at the Hat Man. His thrumming increases, the sound like a rattle made of bone, the smell of ozone, vibrations in the floor beneath my feet. The door looms before me, all the promises behind it. Feels like a dare. Feels like it all comes down to this.
Blake! Jesus!
I touch the handle. It's incongruous. Warm and fleshy, what should be cold and metallic. Like a handshake or a caress, it turns easily when I push down. Behind me, Will is yelling, panicked. I ignore him. I glance at the Hat Man's face, up near the ceiling. He looms over me, droning, predatory. He nods. I push. The door opens inward with a plume of stale air. Beyond, darkness. It's warm, but it's dark. I take a deep breath, bracing myself, and I step over the threshold. The door slams behind me, encasing me in darkness. The utter absence of light. Wildly, I stumble forward, reaching for something, anything. A wall, a switch. Nothing. I swing around, desperate. Sure, I just made a fatal mistake. I trapped myself in a space between dimensions, a world of nothing but black. I was tricked. The goddamn Hat Man. His only goal was to dispose of me, capture me, or kill me. And like a fucking idiot, I ignored my distrust and played straight into his hands. And my hands find a wall. Something that feels like a switch. I flick it. There's light. Blinding in the previously absolute darkness. I shield my eyes with my arm and turn. I'm in the classroom. Like I never left. I pause, blinking. Well, Will isn't here, but otherwise it's exactly the same. Behind me is the door out of here, the hallway beyond. To my right, at the back of the room, is the blank white wall where the metal door should appear. But it's not there now. Glancing at the clock on the wall, I see why. It's 5:55. I open the classroom door first, peering out into the empty corridor. Lines of lockers, loose paper on the ground. None of the lights are on. It's quite empty. A school building after hours. Through the window at the end of the hall, I see only darkness. Like it's midnight, not 6 p.m. I get a bad feeling about this place. I don't know where I am, but I don't think it's the real school. I'm hesitant to go exploring. I feel like I'll get lost here. I head back into the classroom. One of the overhead lights flickers and pops into darkness. Glancing over at the back wall, I see the doors appeared, like it was there all along. Sighing, I approach it. There's really nothing else to do. I turn the handle and I walk through. I'm in the classroom again, like a loop. Except it's dark this time. Every light is out. Through the gloom, I see each desk is filled with a dark silhouette. They sit in silence, watching. Their heads twitch and turn to follow me as I head to the back of the room, to the metal door there. Gripping the handle, I glance back at the whiteboard to see a Latin phrase written, ad infinitum, onwards towards infinity. Ominous. Fuck it, not letting myself back out now, I slam open the door and barrel through, only to have 1 foot meet empty air. Panicked, I scramble back, pressing myself against the wall. I'm on a small stone platform over a deep, black pit. Above me, curved concrete walls raise into the distance. Looking up, I can barely make out a narrow pinprick of light at the top, miles away. I'm in the center of a vast well, a hole. From the platform descends endless stone steps, winding around the walls of the pit. They're narrow, railless and damp, covered in dark moss or black mold. The threat of slipping, of falling, is not only present, it's likely. But the door behind me's gone, so I don't have much of a choice. I start down, one hand on the concrete wall beside me. I wonder if I am, in fact, down in the very hole I encountered at the beginning of this long and harrowing journey. This one is round, much wider than was described to me, but who knows? Maybe it changes as it deepens. Maybe it widens. I make my slow descent. I only hear my breath, my pulse in my ears, the occasional drip of blackish water from above. The bottom isn't getting any closer. God, I hate the heights. And here I am, barely balanced on a steep and winding staircase with no end. The void below seems eternal. If I fall from here, I think I'd fall forever. A sound cuts through the stillness, makes me jump and freeze. It comes from above, miles away. So faint I can barely hear it at all at first. But as it gets louder, rushing down in eternal velocity, I'd recognize it. A human scream. It's a male voice, a shriek of profound terror, keening and ragged. I look up to see a shape barreling towards me, falling straight from the hole's surface. I flinch back against the wall just in time. A split second later, he would have clipped me, carried me over the edge with him. He's flailing, grasping at the staircase, the walls. I only get a blurred glimpse of him as he passes, but I see the terror in his eyes, hear it in his voice. Then he's below me, shrinking into darkness, still screaming. Fades away after a few moments. I stand there, covering my breath. And then I hear another sound. The scrabbling of flesh and nails against the stone. It comes from the darkness behind me, back up the staircase. Something's following you. I pick up my pace, hurrying now, down into the darkness. I don't know what's down there, but I don't want to know what's behind me either. I'm going so fast I almost miss it. A gray steel door set back into the shadowy niche off into the stairs. I could have passed it easily, and then who knows how long I would have been descending those stairs. Who knows how long before that thing behind me catches up. I swing into the niche and push the door open. It takes a second to figure out my surroundings before I'm hit with a wave of vertigo. The world flips and swims, and I drop to my hands and knees. I'm in the hallway of an old house, but everything's upside down. The floor's above me, the doors inverted, the furniture stuck to the ceiling. Or maybe I'm the one on the ceiling. The metal door is ahead of me, upside down at the end of the hall. Incongruous in this place of Victorian wallpaper and wood furnishings, I crawl toward it. Not sure if I can stand, not really wanting to try. When I'm halfway there, I hear laughter behind me, and turning, I see that the hallway curves, a set of inverted stairs leading up to the ceiling. The laughter's coming from there. A woman laughing, and it's unpleasant, it's cruel. Then she speaks. I'm coming up there. I make it to my feet. My head clips the corner of an inverted side table as I pass by, but I barely feel the pain. I fumble with the handle of a metal door, disoriented for a few precious seconds before I get it open. Behind me, a noise on the stairs. I glance back to see a pale hand emerge around the corner. Then I climb through the metal door and it slams behind me. I fall into the ground with a whump and lay there a few seconds, dazed. It's dark here, but sitting up, I get the impression of an old stone building. The musty smell of things long dead and forgotten. Under me are leaves, roots, vines. Tree branches snake along ancient stone walls, the forest reclaiming its territory. The figure stands at the far end of the room, barely visible in the darkness. I climb to my feet, groaning, and call out, "Hey!" My voice echoes around me. There's movement up high, along the walls, like an animal skittering along the vines. Or perhaps the vines themselves shifting in response. I approach the figure, which I'm starting to worry is an optical illusion. It's human shaped, but otherwise has no distinguishing features, like a silhouette in the darkness. "Fuck!" I say aloud. Of course, another shadow person. I watch it bend down to grab something on the floor. When it straightens up, it brings up the lid of a hatch. And buried underneath the leaves, scattered the tile ground. With no hesitation, it jumps down into it. I move to investigate. The hatch opens into a well of darkness, out of which rises the damp, earthy smell of a stagnant pool of water. I glance around. Maybe I should stay here a while. Try to find a different exit. The vines and branches along the walls of this place shift. I hear them creaking, rustling, anticipatory. Then another noise comes from behind the building's walls. Dead, dry branches snapping off their trees and crashing onto the ground. Something huge moving through the forest. The steady clump hooves quickening its pace. Closer they come, towards me. My decision's made. Glancing to the sky, I silently curse everything that led me here, and then I take a deep breath and I leap into the hole. I hit water fast, so fast it hurts. I'm taken under before I have time to react. It's bracing cold, so dark I can't even see the bubbles around me. I lose half my breath in an involuntary gasp of surprise, and my mouth is full of sour water, rushing down my throat. I need air, need the surface, but I don't know which way is up. I make a few mindless strokes in an arbitrary direction, only to find my ankle is stuck in something. Maybe seaweed. I tug, but it's not breaking. Panicking now, I blindly reach down and rip away the vegetation. My fingers find something else entirely. It's solid, slimy, thick. An old rope, maybe. My head pounds, oxygen depleting with every thump of my heart. I explore it by touch. It's oddly warm, somehow familiar, but I can't quite work out what I'm touching. Then the rope tightens around my ankle. A piece of it reaches up, strokes the top of my hand. I feel the blunt end of a nail, the fleshy pad, and I realize what I'm feeling are massive fingers. They transfer their grip. The giant hand latches around my wrist, and the rest of my air reserve is yanked out of my mouth when it drags me downward. I catch sight of something pale and huge beneath me, but I'm moving too fast, lungs screaming, close to passing out. I can't catch hold of my thoughts anymore. They're slipping so easily out of my head. It's pounding, throbbing. I need air. Something dark flashes in front of me, darker than water, and there's a tremendous jolt. My arm is nearly wrenched out of its socket as whatever has me let me go. Then I'm being propelled upwards, at least what I hope is upwards. Shadowy hands grip me on all sides, tugging my clothes, my hair. Water rushes around me, pressing on. God, I need air. I lose consciousness before I break the surface. Maybe not long before. When I open my eyes, I'm on the shore of a dark lake, surrounded by grass and reeds. I cough and gag and roll over and expel a stomach full of black water. Then I suck in what has to be the most beautiful breath man has ever known. I lay there a while, staring at the endless black of the sky, trying to gather my strength. But the edge of the lake, that thing in its depths, it's too close. I sit up, I scramble away, water squelches in my boots, streams out of my leather jacket. I shed both and leave them there. A windowless black cabin sits between the trees by the shoreline. One door in the rough wood facing the lake. You guessed it. Gray metal, silver handle. I'm exhausted, frustrated. I just want it to stop. But instead I go through the door. It opens into a hallway lined with doors and curtained windows. The architecture's old, elaborate, maybe Baroque. Dark silver wallpaper, tarnished gold moldings, old furniture, brittle and disused. The air feels very heavy here. Sounds are muffled, flat. My head buzzes with pressure of it. Feels like I'm miles underground, and piled up against every door and window are mounds of gray earth. I recognize it immediately. Lazari's death realm, the one she visited after her drowning. My heart leaps at the thought of her, then sinks instantly. Death realm. Blick, you fucking idiot. Am I dead? I wander the dark corridors for how long I don't know. They're endless. Labyrinthian. None of the turns make sense. I try the old trick where you put your left hand to the wall and follow it, but after making 6 left turns and not ending up back where I started, I gave that up. Space doesn't work right here. The hallways change as you move through them. Everyone is different, and every so often you'll encounter what I call landmarks. A huge, foggy mirror along one wall in which my reflection is distorted, and other shapes seem to move in the hallways behind me. A wide chamber where a chandelier made of deer antlers slowly swings back and forth. A stained glass window depicting a woman lounging on a pile of swaddling fetuses. A locked black cabinet, from inside of which I can hear a soft scratching noise. A vast grandfather clock that ticks backwards. A dusty pile of clothes. A child's left shoe. I pass all of it. My socked feet barely make a sound on the patchy carpet. I realize, surprised, that my clothes are dry. How long have I been here? Around the next corner is a giant stone fireplace, elaborately designed. I move toward it, thinking of Lazari. She mentioned something like this in her transcript. Sure enough, it's packed with earth, filled to the brim. Something's moving around inside. Muffled scratching comes from the chimney. I watch with interest as a few clumps of dirt dislodge and roll down the mound. Then my eyes are distracted. Something's glinting on the mantel above me. I reach up and feel around for a second before my fingers brush something hard and metallic. Bringing it down, I examine it. A woman's ring. Delicate, silver inlaid with a small black stone. Made for a tiny finger. There's an inscription on the inside of the band. Ad infinitum. I know immediately that it's Lazari's. She left it here when she came through. I know it deep in my gut, and I think back to the writing on the whiteboard, the same Latin phrase. Does she have a hand in this? Is she guiding me, somehow? I slid the ring onto my pinky. It hits the first knuckle and won't go down any further. But I like it there, even if she has nothing to do with all of this. It's comforting. There's a sound behind me, and I turn to see someone disappear behind the next corner. I follow immediately. Even if it's a shadow person, at least it's something. But I slid my thumb over the ring on my pinky in hope. When I round the corner, the figure is far down the hall, swallowed in the gloom. I jog after it, but it turns down another corridor. I took the corner at a run, only to nearly lose sight of it around another. I yell, "Wait!" But it does not. If anything, it moves faster. I give chase. The figure is always just out of reach, always a little too far ahead. At one point, I think I lose it, only to turn in place and see it cross the hallway at an intersection I already passed. I see what I think is a flash of blue hair as she disappears. "Lazari!" I call. I remember her, or at least I can almost do it. Almost see her face in my mind. Delicate, elfin, wide gray eyes. She needs to know. She needs to know I remember. I sprint after her down the hall, around the corner, and I skid to a halt. This corridor is the longest I've seen. The walls are bare, unadorned. No mounds of earth. And at the end, there's a single door. A gray metal door with a silver handle. Commonplace. My door. I jog toward it, breathing hard, rubbing Lazari's ring like a talisman. The end. I can feel it. I'm almost there. I reach towards the handle, I open it, and I go through. And this nightmare will end. I'm within a yard when the Hat Man appears. He's solid. Shadow-given form, towering towards the ceiling. His disturbing white eyes gaze down at me, 2 crescent moons in the darkness of his face. He's grinning, and he's standing right in front of my door. I stop before him, and breathing heavily, shaking. I don't want to look at him. His face scares me in a way not many things do anymore, but I'm determined to meet his eyes. "Blink," he says. His mouth doesn't really move. His teeth simply part and the sound comes out. The voice you imagine when you think of death. Not that I think that's what he is. I don't know what he is. But that's what I think of. "What?" I snap. My voice is shockingly rasp, thick with tears. I'm appalled by the sound of it. But I refuse to let this fucker, this thing, that stalked me for years haunt me. Reaching into my head and planting the dreams there, I I refuse to let it see my fear.
Blake,
He says again. His voice is gentle. It's pleading.
we have much to discuss.
Do we? I ask. Can we discuss you getting the fuck out of my way?
I can.
The Hat Man replies, his pupils rolling madly around those stark white eyes.
But I fear it will be such a loss, such a waste.
Agree to disagree.
Are you not curious?
The Hat Man asks. There's a current of anger in his words now. The clearly constructed mask of calm is showing cracks.
I know you are. You've learned so much. And the things I can show you, the things I could teach, do you not want to see?
See what?
I will not say, but what you've seen already, do you not understand? This is only the beginning. I can hand you the keys to the universe. Peel back the curtain to the clockwork behind the stars. You have sought such knowledge, and you have only seen glimpses, seen meager, paltry, pathetic glimpses. All the same, I am proud.
Proud.
Yes, proud. I can think of no better candidate than you, my Blake.
Candidate, I say. For what?
For my family.
The Hat Man replies, gesturing down the halls behind me. Glancing around, I'm startled to see dozens of shadow people lining the walls on either side of the corridor behind me, silent, watchful. I let my eyes travel up and down the formation for a long moment before what he's offering really hits me. Then I turn back to meet his blank, awful eyes again. Hold up, I say. You want me to join the ranks? I bark a laugh, disbelieving. To what? Become one of you?
I am offering, the Hat Man growls, something that most humans would die for. I am offering you the chance to move between worlds, to see all, to learn all.
He leans down to get in my face, his breath wafting against me. He smells like burning plastic and rotting leaves. His teeth are still shaped like a smile. His eyes are round and animate. Pupils moving and focusing. But this close I can confirm what I already know. It's just a mask. Just some perverse mask of humanity.
Show some respect, he says, and give me your answer.
I think back on the past 5 years. All the people I've met. All the people I've lost. All that I've learned. All that I've guessed. I think of what could be under Hat Man's smiling mask. I think of all the things shrouded in darkness, never meant for human eyes. All the wisdom this journey brought me. All the happiness it took. In the end, I don't have to consider for long. Nah, I say. No thanks. And before he can respond, I thrust my hand forward, the hand on which I wear Lazari's ring. It passes through the Hat Man as easily as he'd pass through a shadow, and I find the silver handle, and I open my door. So that's my final decision. The final threshold I crossed, and honestly, I think it was my best work. I spilled out into Will's sunlit classroom. He was still yelling, hadn't stopped actually. I'd been gone exactly 3 seconds. The door had vanished though, so that was good. We didn't part on the best of terms. I couldn't really talk for a second there. I just mumbled something about the door, how sorry I was, and I left. Never looked back. I'm done. You probably guessed that. I've given up the cert. I've got all the answers I could want. I've seen the dark underbelly of this world and the worlds beyond, and I've seen monsters. I've seen a glimpse of death. I've seen enough, in short, to know what I really want. I'm going back to New York. I liked it there. I'd like to give someone her ring back. If you're in the area, keep an eye out for me. It won't be hard to spot. Not because I'm anything special, but for the first time in years, I don't think I'll be alone. I think I'll have a girl beside me. A girl with bright eyes, blue dreadlocks. A girl whose memory is now somehow clear in my mind. And maybe, despite all of it, maybe we'll look happy.
Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to tell you all thank you so much for listening to tonight's story, or watching tonight's story if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, that means you're probably on the podcast that's available on iTunes, on the Google Play Store, and is now actually available on Spotify, and doesn't use as much data. So, hey, that's a thing. If you guys aren't listening on YouTube or Spotify, then I have no idea how else you could have found me. Unless you found one of those books on Amazon. You know, the CreepyPasta Collection, Volume 1, Volume 2. Those are things too. Oh well, I don't know how you would have heard me there, seeing as this was recorded like 2 years after those came out. Well, anyway. Thanks for listening, folks.
And sweet dreams.